This is my 2009 MacBook Pro again. I've already made a video showing it running Windows 11, but now something is different. The brightness control works. So how did I get it to work? I installed it in legacy mode. EFI mode is usually better than legacy mode, but in this specific hardware configuration, legacy mode is the way to go with Windows. As you might have noticed, this Windows 11 installation is a little bit out of the ordinary. It has few icons in the taskbar, it has the classic Windows Vista 7 start menu, and most settings are gone, including Windows Update. That's because I used a script called AME Wizard. AME stands for Ameliorate, but I think it's worsened instead, because it removes several essential Windows features like Windows Update and Windows Security, which is not good on a system you want to connect to the internet. So because I don't like this stripped down installation, I'm going to reinstall Windows 11 in legacy mode on this computer, so I can show you how to get the brightness adjustment working. First thing you need is installation media. You have to download the Windows 11 ISO file, and either burn it to a dual layer DVD-R or write it to a USB flash drive. But make sure the flash drive is formatted to MBR mode, not GPT. You can do that using the program Rufus. The problem is that Macs don't allow legacy boot from flash drives, so we have to trick it somehow. And you can do that by using another boot manager in legacy mode, Plop Boot Manager. You can get it by going to Downloads, Boot Manager Downloads, latest version from 2013, PLP BT 5.0.15, and burning plpbt.iso to a CD or DVD. And you'll be able to boot that one in legacy mode. There's yet another problem though. So I've burned Plop Boot Manager to this DVD-RW. I put it in the computer. It tries to read it for a while and then just spits it out. The internal optical drive of this computer no longer works properly. Luckily, a USB optical drive is allowed, so we can use that to boot in legacy mode. So I'm going to plug in my external USB optical drive and insert the Plop disk into it, and also plug in my flash drive with the Windows 11 installer. You can use the bootcamp assistant on macOS to set up a secondary partition, or partition manually, it doesn't make a difference. When you're ready to install, you can start up your Mac holding the Alt or Option key. And select your optical drive. If you've got two options, one that says EFI boot and one that says Windows, select the one that says Windows. Now we've got the Plop Boot Manager. If you're using a USB optical drive like I am, unplug it now. Otherwise, when you select USB, it will try booting from the optical drive again, because if it's external, it's also USB. And now the Windows 11 installer will start. It's gonna take a while. And here we are. If it's not at the native resolution, you're successfully in legacy mode. It doesn't matter what you pick here, since it will ask again after setup is done, so we'll just click Next and install now. I have an online digital entitlement license, so I don't have to enter a product key to activate. My Windows license for this computer is Pro. We make sure to install to the right partition. In my case, it's this one. I can tell just because of the size. We'll format it and select it. Finally, it's installed. I haven't connected it to the internet yet. So let's eject the installation USB drive and install the Windows Support software. You can get this support software either from the Bootcamp Assistant application or by downloading it directly from Windows on this Mac using an app called Brigadier. But if you just try to install it normally, you'll see it won't work. So you have to right click and go to Properties, but you can't right click on the Mac trackpad. So you either have to use a USB mouse or go to Properties here, then go to Compatibility and run it in compatibility mode for Windows 7. Now it will install. Finally, it's done, but don't restart yet. We have to make some changes first. Yes, this program worked correctly. We have to go to the Windows System folder, System32, Drivers, find MacHALDriver.sys, rename it to something else. For example, I'll add Alt at the end and replace it with this newer version. This is version 6.1.7500.0 and this one is 6.200.1.5, which makes Windows 11 crash, so we have to replace it with the newer version. Now we can restart. Now it works, it's at a native resolution, and brightness control works, but we're not done yet. Maybe it's difficult to see here, but there are some graphical glitches, because this is an older driver from 2011. We can update it to a newer version while still keeping the brightness control and get rid of the glitches. The newest GeForce 9400M driver is version 342.01, which you can get from the NVIDIA website. So let's go ahead and install it. Now that you updated the video driver, the graphical glitches are gone, but you can't adjust the brightness anymore. So now we have to apply this registry key. I'll show you the file, what it does. It just adds a key called Enable Brightness Control. So you just run that. And also on an unrelated note, we'll add this registry key that sets the system clock to UTC, which is what macOS and Linux use. So the time is no longer skewed in one of the operating systems if you dual boot. If Windows is the only OS installed in your computer, you don't need to do this. And you can do this on other computers with dual boot as well. Now let's restart and see if brightness control works. Let's press F1 and F2, and it works. Let's go to Device Manager to make sure that we're using the newer driver from 2016, and we are. The brightness adjustment is still hidden in the Windows settings, as you can see here on the bottom right, but using F1 and F2 will work, as well as using F5 and F6 to adjust the keyboard backlight brightness, and F10, F11, and F12 to adjust the volume, though the volume can be adjusted in Windows too. So now we can connect to the network, and we're connected, or are we? Let's open a web browser, and it seems like we are. But last time I tried it, it wasn't working. It was just loading and loading and not showing anything. If you have that problem, you go to Device Manager, find Broadcom 802.11n network adapter, go to Driver, Update Driver, browse my computer for drivers, let me pick from a list, and choose one of the other ones. If Broadcom is selected, try Microsoft. Or if you tried Microsoft and it didn't work, choose Broadcom and then click Next. That will fix the Wi-Fi connection issues. And speaking of this coprocessor driver, you can update it using Snappy Driver Installer. And here's that missing driver, NVIDIA Enforce System Management Controller. And there we have it. All drivers in this computer with Windows 11 are up to date. Now the only thing left to check is Windows updates, which as you can see have already started to appear. And you're set, at least until the next Windows build comes out. And now that brightness adjustment works, I'd say it's actually usable. So instead of getting rid of it right away, I'm going to try it a little bit to see how well it works. And have Windows 11 on a laptop with a 16:10 aspect ratio screen, like new laptops. If your video appears to freeze sometimes, especially when waking the screen back up, you can restart the video driver without restarting the whole computer by pressing Shift, Control, Command, B. It will beep, flicker for a second, and then it will start responding again. Last thing I want to show here is max fan control. To speed up this max fans a little bit, so this computer doesn't heat up too much. So let's install this application that you can download for free. And as you can see, the CPU temperature is at 98 degrees Celsius and it's barely running the fan. That's not very healthy. So let's set the fan to custom sensor-based value based on the CPU diode temperature. And we'll set it to start speeding up at 45 degrees and run at maximum speed at 75 degrees Celsius. And after pressing OK, you'll see the fans start running at basically full speed because it's already well past 75 degrees. And we can set this app to automatically start and add an indicator in the taskbar. So now we can monitor the CPU temperature right here. And thanks to the fan running at higher speed, it's already starting to cool down. Alright, so it's been over a month and I've been using Windows 11 on this 2009 Mac almost every day. I still don't recommend it, but for messing around, it's not bad at all. So we can check the system properties. There it is, this 2009 Mac with Core 2 Duo, 8 gigs of RAM, and the SATA SSD, which is almost full, but I made a 60 gigabyte partition. One issue I did encounter is that the computer would sometimes freeze when waking up from sleep mode, even after resetting the video driver. So I set it up to hibernate instead of going to sleep mode when closing the lid. Despite the CPU still being pretty capable, it does get used quite a lot, so you absolutely do need a fan control app so the CPU doesn't get too hot. This means it will make more noise, but at least it won't heat up to dangerous temperatures. Today is also the second Tuesday of the month, which means it's Patch Tuesday for Windows. And so here we are, downloading some updates. Security updates for the current build of Windows 11 work just fine on unsupported computers. But when the next version of Windows 11 comes out, 23H2, 24H2 and so on, those will not arrive in Windows Update, so you'll have to update manually with Workaround again. I don't think anyone is going to do that every year. And if you don't do it, the OS will lose support. Windows 11 version 21H2 ends support on October 2023, and version 22H2 ends support in October 2024, which is a year before Windows 10. I've been using both Edge and Firefox, and they both perform equally, but most of my stuff is on Firefox, so let's check that out. For example, let's go to YouTube. Find something to watch here.
Mia madre dice che ha fatto I sordi chi fumetti. Ma che gli racconti a questi? La vita tua? Mica sei un ragno.
In Super Mario 64, there are many different objects. Some objects, like teleporters, never get
It takes a while to load, but then it plays just fine. Even at 720p, 60 frames per second.
Even objects that get rendered sometimes turn off their rendering. For example, a wing cap block turns off its rendering for a bit after you open it.
It drops some frames sometimes, but it's barely noticeable while watching. So it's not bad at all. I've been using 720p or lower all the time because the screen is lower than 1080p. So watching online videos, listening to music, and general web browsing works just fine. And this is the latest version of Firefox. I'm not even using the ESR version here. Same thing on Edge.
Who are you? Along the way, I'll be shouting at helicopters. If gravity's real, as you seem to be claiming, I just imagine something like this orange, and then imagine it's not there.
But one thing I haven't tried yet is the Precision Touchpad drivers, which are not official, but they're supposed to improve the performance of the trackpad. So let's go ahead and try them. So we can download the latest release of these drivers, AMD 64, which does not mean AMD CPUs only. And let's extract these. And to install them, I believe you just right-click on the INF file and select install, but let's see to make sure. Yeah, you just do that. I don't have any other tools like Trackpad++, so where is it? Here it is. Right-click, install. Okay, now it's installed. So now the trackpad of this MacBook should be recognized as a Windows Precision trackpad, which you can configure right from the settings app. Where is it? Bluetooth and devices maybe? Trackpad or touchpad? Yeah, now it's scrolling the wrong way. So let's fix that right now. Scroll and zoom. I want down motion to scroll down, please. And now it's scrolling the right way. We can set up tabs and stuff. Let's see. Tap twice and drag to multi-select. I'm not sure I want that, but I'll have to mess with it more off camera. What about gestures with more fingers? So that's pretty good. We've improved the trackpad experience using this third-party driver. For a while I've been using the Windows taskbar icons in the middle, but because I've been used to having the start button on the left for over 20 years, I still like to have that there. So I can just move my mouse to that corner and click and the start menu opens. The start menu design is a bit weird, but clicking all apps shows you your usual list of applications. I tried Windows Subsystem for Android, which installed just fine because I have 8 gigs of RAM, but it doesn't start. For example, try to open the Files app. It says starting, but then just closes, because it needs a CPU with SLAT, second level address translation, and that's only available on the first generation Intel Core or newer. As for video editing, I tried Microsoft Clipchamp, But being a web-based app, it ran pretty slow. And besides, I had already started editing this video with Kdenlive on my main video editing PC. So I didn't want to start all over with a different video editor. But still, I took that video project and tried to open it on this computer to see if I can continue editing here. And I sure can. I was able to edit about half of this video using Kdenlive on this 2009 Mac. Even with proxy clips, the preview is a little bit choppy, but all the video editing features I need work great, without being too slow. I'll probably render this video on my video editing PC, just to save some time, not because this computer can't do it. Obviously, I think I would rather go back to my newer computer, which still doesn't support Windows 11 officially, even though it has TPM 2.0, but I forgot how capable Core 2 Duos are. Even though I would recommend a more suitable OS like Windows 10 or a modern Linux distribution. But this was just an experiment. I wanted to daily drive this OS for a while and it wasn't a horrible experience. So that's about it. If I forgot any important details, I will add them to the description and you can ask in the comments if anything wasn't very clear. So there we go. Thank you for watching and happy Pride!